Hello and welcome to the Silverman Show. I'm your host Ilene, and on this week's program, our guests discuss the 13th Annual ADA Expo, our city and county equal opportunity offices, and the need to promote disability awareness in our community. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us for our program. In 1990, the American Disabilities Act was passed. To tell us more, I'm pleased to introduce my guest, Tony Delisle, Executive Director, Center for Independent Living. Tony, I'm pleased to have you join us. And
it's an honor to be on your show, Ilene. Thank you for having us. This does mark the 27th year after which the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, was passed, and it has been a game changer. It really has helped bring a more level playing field for people with disabilities and more equity.
All right.
In terms of
you say people with disabilities.
Yeah.
What about yourself? Tell me just a bit.
I was born with a degenerative eye disease, macular degeneration, which is the leading cause of blindness, and it has been degenerating to the point now where I am legally blind.
Okay. Still, I already know all the many things you have been a part of in this community, and the Center for Independent Living, which does so much for so many. But help us understand. Okay, we said 27 years have passed. Good things, other things not so good. What is the state of our state of Florida and our community in dealing with those who have a disability? Are we doing well? Are we making a difference?
Well, I'll tell you, there are some many success stories out there where people with disabilities are, overcoming and achieving and living independent and very successful lives. It's not the norm, though, unfortunately.
Okay.
The ADA has gone a long way. We still have more work to do. When you look at the population of people who have a disability, it is 1 in 4 people have a disability, whether that's a physical disability, whether that's a mental health disability, whether that's a cognitive or intellectual disability, or a sensory disability like myself, being legally blind.
Okay, so any and all or combination.
It's the biggest minority group out there if you look at minority status, and it's a group of people where 1 in 4 have a disability. So if you don't have a disability, you'll likely know someone that has a disability.
Definitely, or they're a family member, or yes.
Absolutely, and likely you will have a disability in your lifetime as well. Most people will.
Understanding, and it goes a long way for each one of us.
Absolutely, yeah. Having that awareness, it touches everybody. It is that one group that really does unite us all. And that's something that to be aware of. And the work that we have to do in helping with people with disabilities is carved out for us. People with disabilities are less likely to graduate from high school. 50% of people with disabilities graduate from high school compared to 80% without disabilities graduating from high school.
What about health?
There's many disparities when it comes to health. People with disabilities are 4 times more likely to have heart disease, 2 times more likely to have cancer. They're 11 times more likely to have respiratory diseases. Nearly 40% report clinical depression. You could go across the board into the top health issues that face the general public.
Right.
It is magnified in the population of people with disabilities, and these are chronic diseases that are preventable and don't have to do per se with their disability, but more or less the social and environmental context in which disability occurs.
And so that all heightens it, and then everything, it's a whole snowball.
It sure does. And
Yes.
these are interrelated factors that do play upon each other.
And what about employment?
Employment. So in the state of Florida, the unemployment rate for people with disabilities is around 18%. Compare that to just under 5% in the population without disabilities. So it's nearly 4 to 5 times greater in the population of people with disabilities. And then that ties over to income. People with disabilities, 1 in 3 live in poverty. Another 50% above and beyond that 1 in 3 have trouble living and making ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck. So nearly 80% of people have a very poor socioeconomic status when you have a disability. You take poverty, very difficult. Poverty plus disability, very challenging. So we do have a lot of work to do.
In terms of, you talk about challenging transportation.
Transportation cuts across the board in terms of all the different types of things that we try to do to, try to help people with disabilities. And at the Center for Independent Living, we're very pleased to be a part of helping to make transportation more accessible for people, because we are a third-party agency that would certify if people are eligible for paratransit services.
Right. Well, you have so many services you provide, and your knowledge is exceptional. And Tony, thank you for sharing so much of that knowledge with us right now.
Eileen, thank you so much for having us and really drawing a spotlight on this very important, critical issue that touches all of us.
Thank you.
Thank
Stay
you.
with us. We'll be right back. We're back, and I'm pleased to introduce Jackie Chung, Equal Opportunity Manager, Alachua County, and Torey Alston, Equal Opportunity Director, City of Gainesville. And Jackie and Torey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, my pleasure. There's just so much your two offices are taking charge of on any given day, and you're both ADA coordinators, so there's that going on too. And so kind of give us a perspective of, Jackie, of what you're all about in the county.
Okay, so Alachua County has a human rights ordinance that provides protections for individuals with disabilities, as well as other protected categories that you might be familiar with, like race, sex, age, religion. But we're talking today about disability awareness. So
exactly.
We have protections against discrimination or harassment based on disability in 3 areas: in employment, concerns on the job, in housing, and in public accommodations, which is really a private business that provides services to the public.
Okay.
And we have a Citizens Disability Advisory Committee that works with our office, and they review county programs, county services, county facilities to make sure that they're accessible to individuals with disabilities.
So they provide a good overseeing, overviewing opportunity, right?
It's important to have input from citizens with disabilities in reviewing the accessibility of our programs and services.
Right, because their perspective would be keen and, as we said, most important. And what about the city, Torey?
Sure, and thanks for having me. And similar to the county, our city commission and our mayor, as you know, is a strong proponent ensuring equal access for all of our citizens, including those with disabilities. And just as the county, as Jackie mentioned, we also have a city ordinance and city policy that bans discrimination for individuals with disability in all of our programs, services, activities, and access to our facilities, which is critically important. The one thing I know Jackie also mentioned this offset as well, we have recently launched what we have called our ADA self-evaluation process. So last year with the city in July, we surveyed all of our programs, services, and activities with all of our departments. I am so proud that our commission accepted that report and those recommendations this January. And we actually just kicked off our self-evaluation of all of our facilities. So that's pools, that's all of our buildings, that's all of our restrooms, and those with high public use all across the city of Gainesville.
And even more than we would be aware of, coming from maybe our perspective, not realizing how much all of everything is involved within our city to make it hospitable for people with disabilities and to make it, more forthcoming. But what if someone faces an obstacle? Can they contact your office and say, alert?
Yes, under the Human Rights Ordinance, we have the whole goal is to reduce or eliminate discrimination or harassment. And we do that in two ways, through enforcement and public education and outreach. Enforcement meaning through the complaint process.
Right.
If somebody comes to us to file a complaint and it's similar offices, the complaint would be investigated and hopefully resolved to the satisfaction of the parties. And then the other prong is public education and outreach, and that's one of the things we're here to talk about today. The different programs we have and the upcoming ADA Expo, which will be in July.
Is Thursday, July 27th, which is Sydney Lanier Center, and what's so wonderful, bringing together your two offices and many nonprofit organizations, all to join forces and share their knowledge, because it helps everyone in our community. And thank you for being strong leaders for the city of Gainesville, for Alachua County. We're all working together, and we appreciate you both and everyone that works with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm pleased to introduce Christine Louton and Christie King, members of the Citizens Disability Advisory Committee. And I'm pleased to have both of you here. And I know you're really chair of the committee, Christine.
Yes, I am.
I think, Christie, you've been vice chair for quite a while.
Yes.
And now still a member.
Mm-hmm.
So doing good things to educate all of us in this community more about living with a disability. And Christie, share a little about that. I've known your family for many years, but tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I was born with spina bifida, which is where the spinal cord wasn't formed all the way, and so some of the nerves and muscles in my legs and feet don't work
The same way as
someone else. For example, you could poke me with a needle on the bottom of my foot and I wouldn't be able to feel it.
Well, So, what was it like starting school, going to elementary school?
In elementary school, from what I remember, I was primarily in regular education classes, although I was pulled out for different subjects,
reasons.
reasons for different subjects, such as reading or math, if I needed extra help in those areas. I had physical therapy and occupational therapy,
A lot to grapple with.
Yes.
Yes. Did it change as you got to middle school? Did things, as far as getting, getting along with other students? Did you often educate them as to?
Well, when I was in elementary school, I would often try to educate my class about, give them a basic knowledge of what spina bifida is. And I even would bring a old pair of braces to show them,
so they could see.
so they could see what they look like.
So you were already advocating back then. Yes, started early on.
Yes.
Okay, what about, skip middle school, because does anybody even like it? And then, and then take me to high school. Things changed.
Yeah, well, things changed. I was bullied some in high school because of, I had the exceptional student education label on me that allowed me to have the accommodations I needed in order to be successful. But
people were not nice about it.
No, they picked up on it and they made fun of me for it. They just were bullying and mean to me. But once I got into a program called High School High Tech, which was through the Center for Independent Living.
Right.
And prior to that program, my parents and my family did a lot for me. Whereas when I got into the High School High Tech program, I was really encouraged to do things for myself.
Right.
And it really helped boost my confidence and was a platform for my becoming more independent.
Right. And now you live on your own?
Yes, I have been living on my own for 1.5 years.
Right.
And I've been employed with the Center for Independent Living for almost 4.5 years.
Well done. So, I admire you. You are an achiever and a strong young lady. And Christine, your story is somewhat different.
Yes, it is. I was born able-bodied, went to college, graduate school, got out, ended up working at Smithsonian Institution in the Natural History Museum. I wasn't doing field work, but I was doing scientific computing. Felt very successful, had my daughter, and when she turned 1, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
This is like a fear, a nightmare.
Well, it was definitely sobering.
Yes.
And yet I could I could walk, I could, get around just fine. And nobody knew at work they didn't have to. And I went on, got other jobs, and then I needed to use a cane. And I was in a particular job. The woman I was having to deal with was not great. And I went to my supervisor and said, you may have wondered why I'm using a cane, but I have multiple sclerosis, and this woman is just stressing me out, and I really can't deal with it. And he said, okay, I'll talk to her. Well, the next time I saw her, what she said to me, and this was 1989, by the way, and next time she saw me, she said, oh, Christine, I wish you had told me before. And I said, why? She said, so I could have treated you differently. Wow, that was the first time I had really, that's discriminatory. You should treat people the same way, no matter what their health condition is. And so that was 89.
That was the first time you saw that.
Right,
Yeah.
and 1990 was when the ADA was signed into law.
Exactly.
And so it's been an interesting trip. My daughter...
An interesting ride.
Yeah, right, so
you
to
bring
speak.
it with you.
So to speak. My daughter is turning 32 on June 20, and that's a marker for me because she was 1 year old when I was diagnosed. And so this October, I will have had MS for 31 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's been an interesting year, by year. And so I could walk, and in fact, I didn't even start using a cane until my daughter was 6.
Right.
And I remember in the grocery store, of all places, she said to me, she goes, "Now, Mom, why are you using a cane? You're not old." And I said, "Well, people use canes if they're old sometimes, if they have an injury." A friend of ours
Right.
had a wheelchair, and I said, because she had, a car wreck. And I said, or sometimes they have diseases. And she said, "Well, what's your disease, Mom?" And so I told her I had multiple sclerosis. And so all these years later, she was 6, I was using a cane. And by the time, I don't know what she was doing, but I started using a scooter in 1996.
Right.
And so it's been quite a trip, but I have worked the entire time. And luckily, I was using computers and have been able to
So
do
you've been
that
able to
the whole time. And one of my
continue.
jobs, the last job I had before I retired, was as the director of an accessible technology center, which is computing for people with disabilities. And
perfect
what's-
fit.
Yeah, it was. And what's great about the ADA Expo is it's all about enabling people with technologies.
Right. And
And
we're
there you
going to
go.
thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk about that expo. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We're back talking with Christie and Christine. And tell me more about the Citizens Disability Advisory Committee. What are some of your responsibilities? What about Christine? Because I know you're chair, so.
The committee gets together whenever there is a county facility that is being renovated or newly constructed for us to do a walkthrough to make sure that it meets the accessibility guidelines. And we've had some interesting experiences,
Yes.
mostly with the bathrooms.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
Something still moving forward even after all these years. So if they don't, are not appropriate,
Well,
you get to
they
say.
have to go back to the drawing board.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
It's taken back to the facilities folks. Right?
Okay.
Right.
Well, and then you have the expo coming up, right, Christy?
Mhm.
When is that going to be?
We are having our annual Americans with Disabilities Act anniversary celebration expo on July 27th from 9 to 12. And this year we are focusing on having vendors
Excellent, to all be a part of it.
in the past we've had speakers as well as vendors, but this
Okay.
year we are focusing on just having vendors, which are going to be a wide range of organizations that work to serve people with disabilities.
Right. So
Well-
like Center for Independent Living,
Living.
we've heard from Tony, Executive Director, and I know that you are a part of that
Yes.
also.
I'm also employed at the Center for
Right.
Independent.
So they'll be there, let's see,
equal
where's
top-
it taking place?
It is going to be taking place at this Sidney Lanier School.
Okay, excellent. So there's a lot of, about how many people usually attend? This is what, I think your 13th annual.
It's 150 to 200 people.
Well, yes, that's great. So it's a good time for networking.
For both the participants that come to the event, as well as giving the vendors an opportunity to network with each other.
Right. Because in our conversation, it seems there is much we still need to learn. And we've talked to Christine. You were pointing out that sometimes you're just maybe one footstep away from being at least temporarily disabled.
Well, I shared with you before, offset, that the people in the disability community have an acronym saying that people are temporarily able-bodied. You are temporarily able-bodied because anybody can join this club.
Right.
And
Membership is free.
membership is
And wait, so is
Well,
the
actually,
expo.
yes.
Okay.
And so is the
Yes.
expo.
And wait, you're asking for donations. You need.
Yes.
But we can always have more sponsors.
Absolutely.
Yes, more donations from businesses in our community.
Absolutely. We've been, as community members, we have been going around to different businesses, soliciting
Different silent auction items
for
and
door prizes.
right raffles or
To-
chance to win.
Exactly.
Okay, yes. It takes a lot of organization. Do you how many people on your committee to get all of this going?
Oh my goodness, what are we up to, 8 people now?
I think we have
Okay,
about
good.
8 people.
Right.
And then we have volunteers. One of the things that's very good about the expo is there are volunteers that will take people who are visually impaired
Mhm.
around to all of the booths. And
Excellent.
Yeah, and so the event is very accessible.
That's good to know.
And we also have several of the Center for Independent Living staff on hand to help as
to
well.
help out also. Great. And I want to thank you, both of you, Christy and Christine, for sharing your stories with us, and also for all the good information from Jackie and Torey and Tony. I think all of us in our community can benefit from the awareness that you are creating for us in understanding more about those living with a disability and how we can all benefit and live a more full, rich life in our community. Thank you all.
Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. And I'm so glad that you tuned in, and I hope you'll join us next week. Take care.